On Friday. We left off talking about Machakos County and the fact that there's a battle for dominance in other areas. But there's something, Gloria, you've mentioned, and I'd like us to digress for a second. Elections, you know, rather, the campaigns have been banned for the next 60 days or so. Counting down, of course, now maybe probably 55. But looking at the situation, what options do candidates have, such as a ban as Ngengele of Machakos and Kabindu? What options do they have to just make sure that their voices are now going to be heard and their policies are going to be heard so that they can be considered for that office?
You know, it's a very, very strange time if you're a politician, especially if you're an active politician during these by-elections. I'll tell you, for instance, in Kisii, we have a by-election in Bonchari constituency where we lost our MP Oro.
Right.
And in 60 days exactly, actually, we are going to get into that by-election.
And it's the same period that has a ban.
It's the same period that has a ban. And you know what's unfortunate is, particularly for Bonchari, is that that's the first woman who's being fronted as a member of parliament in Kisii County. So, you know, it would have been so instrumental and impactful if we actually didn't have the ban, because we would, this is probably the first time we would see a woman in Kisii County actually going out to sell their agenda, you know, gather in those political rallies and things like that. But not to paint all doom and gloom, I think this is where we see the power of media. This is where we actually have to explore other options to sell your manifesto other than door-to-door. You know, the door-to-door campaign is very effective and impactful, but the problem with that is, for instance, my constituency where I come from, Bobasi constituency, is huge. It's so huge that to have an expectation of a candidate to manage to convince the whole of that constituency through a door-to-door campaign is in 60 days.
So what options do they have in your area?
So I think in Kisii right now, the options that we would explore would definitely be that door-to-door, just sort of, you know, navigate certain regions that we think would be.
What about radio stations, TV
radio
stations?
TV stations for sure. In Kisii County, you know, that's, again, it's vernacular. So, you know, we would love to be able to have the national platforms. But like I was telling you, very few national platforms actually have programs that accommodate that kind of local content. Yeah. So I think there has to be other ways. Of course, we will venture into things like posters just to relay messages. I think the gatherings have been restricted to less than 50 people.
Yes.
So as much as you do the door-to-door campaign, again, I imagine that there will be some sort of possibility to have, let's say, 20 women that you can talk to and sell your manifesto. But you know how it is. Talk to the chamas. But even the churches have been, they've gotten more restrictions, and you know, now there's, and we understand because it's of the pandemic. But then you wonder then, because we are talking about giving every candidate a fair chance during an election to be able to sell their manifesto, to be able to go out there and speak to the masses, you wonder how fair that would be in a case like this.
Let's talk to Dennis on that. Dennis, if you look at what is currently happening, the ban and what you know, Gloria is saying in regards to not there being a national platform where a guy from Kisii can come onto the show and talk about his manifesto to the people of Kisii, or her manifesto to the people of Kisii, on a national platform such as this one?
Thank you very much. That's an interestingly good question, because some of the regulations actually seem to be impeding the actions that democracy portends. And therefore, I think it's imperative that the candidates become a bit more ingenious, and they find new ways. For example, people are still going into the markets. People are still going into churches. Families are still uniting. At the end of the day, there's a movement. What is banned is mass gathering. Yes. And I think for the safety and the health of the people, it's important. And so when you look at certain leadership's position, especially at constituency level, you're able to mobilize right from the homestead, because our democracy is so functional that it starts from one person to a family, to a community, to a ward, to a constituency, then to a county. And I think this is why we tend to say that politics is local. So and it's important that the various candidates will have to do more work, they'll have to do more walking, they'll have to do more talking, because sometimes politicians are lazy. All they want to do is mass campaigns and make a lot of noise. And even the Mama Mboga, who is on the ground, doesn't get to understand what a manifesto is. And I was challenging some guys from Wiper the other day.
Yes.
And I said, in Machakos, your narrative is not understood. You have a manifesto that is over 10 years old. But the person in the market is not able to tell your consistent narrative in the manifesto. So some things.
Dennis, what you're saying is the manifesto in Machakos County is more or less what the previous candidate was using, and they are currently fronting it for their current candidate and the candidate before that one.
You see, what happens is that politicians don't have time for the one-on-one narrative. And that is what politics is about.
Okay.
Politics is not about mass representation. Politics is about representing the interest of one person and trying to integrate them into a city dwelling. Politics is from the word polis. How does my interest integrate with the interest of the others, and they don't overlap at the end of the day. But what I'm saying is that there's very little meager understanding of what politicians need to do, and we tend to herd people like sheep or goats that are going into slaughter. And I think there is an opportunity, there is a blessing in a lot of these protocols to get to train an army that can explain the manifestos of a candidate, the wills of a candidate, because this country, we respond to advertising. That is why sometimes I'm against advertising, because people don't even understand. You realize that there's a conversation in this country that Baba akisoma akiatuambia whether ni ukweli ama ni uongo tunaelewa. So we are dealing with a voter base that is largely ignorant and has never had the opportunity to have civic knowledge. And I think this is the opportunity for us to have the one-on-one conversation with the voter on the ground, so that they can make an advice position.
George, do you agree with Dennis that the fact that majority of the voters are ignorant, majority of the voters don't even know what some of these manifestos, are all about, and they only vote because they are a Kalonzo person, or they are a Mudhama person, or they are Alfred Mutua person?
Probably, I will reiterate what the conversation we had last time, that the voter is not the normal human person or normal Kenyan that we interact with every day, because politics is emotive and it emotionalizes the voter towards a certain bias. What you do in politics, what politicians do, they convert the voter into an emotional being that then associates himself or herself with a certain narrative. Sometimes it forms a movement, and then that movement completely disorganizes the logical thought of the voter, and instead he embraces the narratives, the songs, and the repeated discussions that then favors a certain candidate. But that is democracy. It is democracy because democracy is about one person having dominion over the others. When this person then characterizes himself as a symbolic figure that gets embraces in his thought, in his deed, how he expresses himself, then people associate themselves with that person. Sometimes it is more about how the person has marketed himself over time, so that then he continues to be dominant over that society. Those are the called tribal kingpins. Those are the people that then during elections bring the people together, their people, their ethnic formations, so that they can either negotiate with other people or compete with other communities. Now that is what is happening. That's why then we have Kalonzo Musyoka in Ukambani, we have Raila Odinga in Nyanza, we will continue to have Musalia Mudavadi, all such people emerging over time. So ethnicity then is a tool of trade that is being used by politicians over time. Now, coming to the issue of how then do we interact, the element of the corona pandemic and democracy, and how then it affects democracy. We've seen it happen in the US. We've seen how Tanzania held itself in that environment, and we've seen the effects on both in both places. One of the issues is if then you do not control the public in terms of how they interact when they are being formed by politicians and their movements, then there'd be a spike of the effects of corona, especially the infections. That happened in the US, that happened in Tanzania. What the government has done now, it has restricted the numbers into certain formations, probably up to 100. This is because that we are avoiding wider gatherings. You know, what politicians have been doing is they've been campaigning in funerals. They have been campaigning, and there is no social distancing or the healthcare measures that have been put into place being observed. Now, when that happens, is that then you expose an entire public into the effects of corona. Let's put it this way. Our lives have changed. Sometimes they have been disorganized by corona. So has democracy. We just need to adopt that situation. Now, you need them, just like it is that when a situation changes, you are forced to change that situation. You can't be static. Because of that, then what happens is you have to have an intuitive way of voter contact. You have to get closer to the voter, either through the media. There is now social media. There is now the stations, the radio stations that have gone ethnic in some instances.
Those are options.
Yes, but for the urbanites, there is the TV as has been proposed. And this is one of the areas that probably they have to develop. Only that I do know is going to be very expensive to do a campaign during this corona period.
Very expensive to do it on TV and radio?
Maybe I can also add something. The fear that a lot of these candidates have is that there are some regions where we have, particularly like let's say in Kisii County, where we've experienced misuse of, let's say, like the police force, for instance. So the fears that the candidates...
Misuse in what way?
Misuse in the sense that, you know, like now we have this COVID-19 regulations, and they're being told that you can only gather a certain few, and that they would actually only implement and push one side of the political divide. Meaning, if Mbuvi, you are running, let's say, for instance, on UDA, and I'm running on ODM, the ODM candidate is allowed to go freely and gather and do all these things.
But the UDA will be arrested.
But the UDA candidate will be arrested. And that is actually a very serious fear that we have now, because in this, particularly in regions like Kisii County, which are split completely politically, we know, and it's a fact, that we have seen in the past by elections that we've had like illegal detention of certain people who are actively either campaigning for one side. We've had misuse of the police force by arresting bloggers or what, or you know, participants of the by-election. So it's a fear that we have in Kisii, and I think one of the messages that we need to pass strongly as advocates of constitutionalism and of actually being citizens who are abiding to the law is that if indeed this whole 60-day ban of political gatherings that is sincerely because of COVID-19, we want to see it exercised across the board on all political divides. Because in Kisii County, we know for a fact, and we are actually just holding our breath waiting to see that, you know, these COVID rules are going to be used against a certain candidate. And that will be very, very sad.
Now, in that situation then, who do you think has a better chance of becoming the next leader in these areas? Is it the person who, assuming, you know, the law was applied fairly on everyone, is it the person who made the most noise before the ban? Is it the person who had the best policies rather before the ban? Or is it the person who on that particular day atakatua mioga na amekuwa safi?
I'll speak particularly for Kisii County because that's where I have a greater understanding. You'll notice that this is one of the regions where people are very pragmatic. They're very, very, you know, they don't buy into these political parties like, oh, ukikuja na ODM, tutakupigia kura because it's ODM. No, they actually assess the candidate. They actually tend to take you as an individual. It is not the party you've come with. It is not the people who are fronting you. It is you as Mbuvi. They normally assess you and say, are you capable? And that's the reason why Kisii County has a lot of independent elected leaders. That's why Kisii County, a party like ODM, does not have one member of parliament in Kisii County, because the people of Kisii, they actually we are a bit more mature in terms of democracy and in terms of, yes, definitely. And like, for instance, now, you'll notice in this by-election that we are approaching for Bonchari, you'll notice even the candidates that are being fronted, it is not just an issue of huyu ni rafiki ya baba mpatie ticket, huyu ni rafiki ya Ruto mpatie ticket. No, even those political parties that are active in Kisii, they understand the terrain, and that is why they took time, for instance, UDA took time to understand that actually this lady, who's the widow of the late, was actually the machinery behind the
husband's success.
Okay. She actually understood. She campaigned for the husband. When you talk to her, you understand that she'll tell you even how many students hawajapata basari na walikuwa kwa list and things like that. And then if you see now the approach that ODM has taken, you know, because they were caught by surprise with the pick of a woman, first of all, by UDA, and then by the, you know, the widow of the candidate. So you see they took some time. They didn't just rush to say, oh, Opore is the strong. No. Yeah. They've had actually weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of deliberation, because now that caused a certain, like, we need to be careful on who we pick. Okay. So I believe, to your question, do you think it is the first person who ran and made noise, or the person who's going to show up and look like they have money? No, you know what I think it is? This is where if we are given fair ground and no one is going to be bullied, and really you use the tools that are there, which is the media and the door-to-door campaign and the small gatherings, then I'll tell you, this is actually probably going to be the first election where you say, yes, indeed, the people of Kisii picked a leader. A good leader. Yes. Okay. Yes.
All right. Dennis.
Yes.
Same question. In all these elections that, you know, by-elections rather, that we're waiting for, who's going to come out victorious? Is it the noisemaker? Is it the person with the best policies? Or is it the cleanest person in the bunch?
Thank you very much. First of all, it's concerning to note that we've seen the assault of the Electoral Offences Act. If Matungu is the poster to go by, then we are seeing constrained democracy. We are seeing a space where women will not be free to participate. We are seeing the mobilization of vigilantes by, especially what we saw in Matungu, by ANC and ODM. We are seeing some type of state-sanctioned mobilization of a paramilitia. There was a deal that was accused of mobilizing goons against Honorable Generali from Langata, the MP Langata. And therefore, you're looking at the suspension of democracy, safety and security within the polling stations. Right. And you're looking at a very weaponized campaign environment. That the likes of dignified women like Mama Teresa Oro would not be able to contain. But thank God that her political capital, even without her desiring to vie, has been so existential that, as my sister said, that she has been the machine behind the well-being of the people in that constituency. She has been a religious leader for the longest that people can imagine and opposed. It means also her moral and ethical standing is high. She has used the personal money to educate and whatever it is. And these are the type of leaders that the public is looking for. Not necessarily somebody who is coming from nowhere, has no record, and is the noise maker. As you see, people are not looking at further noise. They already have corona noise, which is being advertised consistently every day. They already have other noises, ya matanga, ya nini. People want somebody who will exercise a level of democratic tranquility, and somebody who their political capital is come and see what I have done. And that is what Mama Teresa has done. I have interacted with her personally, and she has amazing attitude. She's an amazing leader, and thereabout. So, and by the way, I think sometimes when you get a leader like this, I don't see the need for elections, but it's still democracy, as my friend
Okay,
said. I think they should just sit and decide.
Two panelists here have just campaign for someone. So let me stop you there, Dennis.
No, I'm not campaigning.
No, it's okay.
I am for the Kisii
It's not
people, and
campaign,
I'm
it's
telling
endorsement.
them, don't miss this chance.
nakuja kwako tu sahi. Very good. But thank you. Thank you, Dennis. George, is anyone you're campaigning for in Kisii County?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
We'll
I'm neutral.
recruit him to support women.
The truth is not a
We'll
campaign.
recruit him to
No,
support
it's
women.
okay. Dennis, George, closing remarks as far as the ban on campaigns are concerned and the possible, basically what are we looking in terms of results going forward?
I think the country is doing its best in terms of managing the social, the dynamic social issues, and also allow, where it's possible, for people to function in the normal way possible.
Yes. Right.
I think we've opened up the economy a bit, it's picking up, and activities can be seen all around. We do not have to make mistakes again by allowing activities that will then spike and bring the economy down again.
Okay.
The other issue will be, I think the issue we're trying to discuss is what's the moral, what is the place of morals in politics? And I think that it is very difficult to moralize, to police politics and moralize politics. When politics happen, the fundamentals and the basics are expected to prevail, meaning there is a law in terms of public order and many other issues that then contain the relationships between the candidates, among the candidates, and also the public and the voters. But again, it is this, that in competition, there are no rules that are set, save for those that are in the text. So that then, if, as is said, it is a lady who is a widow of the incumbent, has the advantage of incumbency to that extent, because she expresses herself in the same fashion that won, and because she was available when it was fashioned out to a style that won as at that time.
Okay.
Now, the others then probably will be introducing themselves and therefore suffer the element of non-familiarity. Now, in that context, you need a more robust environment to introduce yourself and interact with the public and the voter. When that is diminished in the circumstances prevailing, meaning the government has introduced measures to curb movement and interaction with the voter, then what has previously prevailed continues to be sustained on account of the fact that the people are already schooled and are styled to a common familiarity. And that is where the problem is.
Thank you.
But in terms of, I think
we literally have almost zero time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'd like to give the rest as well. Gloria, short of campaigning for Mother Teresa.
Yes.
What else do you want to say in regards to the ban and the campaigns?
Do you know what I would say? I'd say we are forced to be innovative. These are not the usual normal times. And I'm glad to see that a lot of the response of the political parties and leaders and the youth is actually that, okay, fine, these are the new rules, these are the new circumstances, so, you know, we are going to play this game differently. So I would say that I'm excited. I have to say I'm excited that we are pushing the women agenda in Kisii County. You know that I'm an aspirant there.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely for me, having a woman lead the path that nobody has walked, for me, I'm definitely excited to see how that will end, because I know for a fact that it will influence my campaigin.
All right. There, if you're in Kisii County, vote for Gloria. I'll campaign for her at least. They know. Funga hii gumzo, 30 seconds tafadhali. Na usikampenie mtu.
No, you know, I think we're in agreement that we have found our Mother Teresa in Kisii. And what can we do other than embrace our mother? Okay. You know, I would like to say something to the president honorably, respectfully. Political activities were suspended because of COVID. Kenyans are dying. I have lost some close friends. I am kindly asking him, on behalf of many Kenyans, suspend BBI and the referendum.
All right.
It's divisive. The gatherings around BBI have taken away some Kenyans. It has spread infections. Also, it's weaponizing against each other. Please suspend BBI until further notice, so that you can save the lives of Kenyans.
All right. Suspend BBI until further notice, and by extension, the entire referendum That is where we come to a close. We say thank you very much for joining us in this conversation, Gloria, and of course, George and Dennis as well. We take a short break. When we come back, we get interactive.